You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire audio experience. We appreciate you guys sharing and liking and following. Keep all that love and attention coming our way. Today is going to be another great interview with a really great artist, and I'm excited to talk with this gentleman. Ben Basile is here. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, it's actually Ben Basile.
Basile, I'm so sorry, buddy. And we practiced this before we got on here.
That's all right.
That's all good. It's all good. I'm sorry for that. Ben, it's kind of unique because I've talked to a lot of great musicians on my podcast. We've talked to, drummers, lead singers, guitarists, whatever. And I'm super excited about talking with a bassist and just learning a lot more about you and your instrument and your career. So that's kind of a unique aspect to this. But I really want to kind of just give you the floor and let you kind of guide us through a little bit of your history. What started your journey in music, and when did you kind of start and get involved with the bass?
Yeah, so there's one specific moment that I remember that kind of started everything. And I was in junior high, and my older sister walked into my bedroom and handed me a stack of CDs. And she just said, "Let me know which ones you like, and I'll burn them for you." So, of course, this was, 2000, and this was the time of burning CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And in that stack of CDs was kind of the first thing that really opened me up to ska and punk rock. And it was, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Rancid, Green Day, Goldfinger, like all of that kind of started right there for me. And so that was kind of the moment that just turned me on to listening and enjoying music and experiencing the whole genre. So for a long time, I just went to shows, watched bands, traveled to go see music. And then I didn't really start seriously studying music or like thinking of myself as a bass player pretty late. It was my third year of college. And I was kind of like, well, if I have to go to school for a bachelor's degree, let me see if I can have fun while I do it. And then so I started studying music. And had a great time, life-changing, obviously. And then I went to New Paltz to get a degree in jazz studies there. And then while I was at New Paltz, it was kind of like, well, I'm gonna go for this. I think I can do this. I think I can be a full-time musician. And since then, I'm very grateful. I've had a wonderful career. I've traveled all over, and I've worked with a bunch of artists, recorded a lot of albums. But my album Benergy, which is coming out next week, is kind of the first adventure into doing this as a solo artist, as my own band leader and composer. And so, yeah, that's what we're here talking about today.
Yeah, very cool. I definitely appreciate the information. It's cool. I think you have the coolest sister, by the way, because my sisters definitely wouldn't have not have given me a stack of CDs and took the effort to burn anything for me. And she gave you like really great artists to listen to as well. So what a great inspiration story to like get things started. Like when you said Green Day, I was like, that's me. And you mentioned some others and I was like, yep, that's me too. So that's very cool. Were you playing other instruments besides bass as you're kind of like growing up and learning instruments?
Yeah, my first instrument was actually the trombone in junior high. I hated it. I was cutting my lessons all the time and getting in trouble, so that didn't last that long. For like a brief period, I borrowed a friend's guitar, but I didn't really connect with that. And then I was in high school, and a friend of mine, Anthony, his parents bought him a bass for Christmas one year. And then I was over his house the next year, and that bass was just sitting in the corner of his bedroom, covered in dust. And I was like, "Hey, man, what's up with this?" And he goes, "Oh, my parents got me this bass, and I don't know, I don't really use it." I was like, "Hey, can I just borrow it?" And that was it. And here I am today.
Okay, cool. Well, another good story because now you have a cool sister and a good friend. So I dig it. I dig it. Well, I'm really curious about a couple things here because I was doing some research on you this morning and checking all this stuff out. So, are you still part of a band called Big D and the Kids Table?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I've been
Okay, that's
playing
active.
with Big D. Yeah, I've been playing with Big D since 2013.
Okay, so that's kind of the main show and playing with them. Now you have this solo career kind of thing that you're launching as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, talk to me about Big D. How did the band kind of come together? Because I was listening to that music and I was loving that, man. Like that kind of big band kind of sound, but like I don't know. I'm trying to think of the genre or the musical artist that kind of reminded me of the style I was listening to. I listened
Sure.
to a couple of different tracks that you guys have out on YouTube and Spotify right now.
Yep.
But very kind of like fun, high energy. Like it looks like it just go a bunch of cool, really cool guys kind of hanging out together. So like that's kind of the energy I was getting from the music videos and stuff. So I'm sure the live shows
Well,
are just as cool.
it's so funny that you say that because Big D and the Kids Table started well before I was in the band. They started in 95, 96, and it was just a bunch of cool musicians hanging out at Berklee College of Music. And they kind of just started their own band. And when Big D originally started, there was like so many members. And then eventually it, came down to a more manageable size. But that's exactly how it started. And then, fast forward, to 2013, and that's when I joined the band, and they've existed for a long time, laying down the groundwork before I even got there.
So what was the
And
process?
I would,
Did you have to like go to a casting, or they just found you, or how did you get involved?
so actually, I was supposed to audition, and then they canceled the audition. And then they were like, "Oh, you could just go to Brooklyn, and our drummer lives down there, and you could jam and meet up with him." And then I kept trying to link up with Derek, who was the drummer at the time, and we never got the chance to meet up and play. And then like a week or two later, they were like, "You know what? We know you can do this. We'll see you at the Warped Tour." And that was it.
And just launched at that point. So you guys
Yep.
played the Whoop Tour and a handful of other festivals and stuff around the country too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's so cool. No, the band has an excellent sound. Like it's super high energy and fun. So I would definitely encourage people to check out Big D and the Kids Table. I'm really curious about kind of the bass instrument, right? So I've learned a lot from a lot of people that are really skilled at their craft and, guitarists, singers, drummers, all of that stuff, but never really had the idea to be able to like pick a brain of a bass player. What's the role, in your opinion, of the bass in the band? Like what is the role of keeping the beat and stuff? I mean, give me the synopsis there.
So I always describe it to my students and kind of like this, like on one side you have the drums, and that's keeping the rhythm and the time. On the other side you have your piano or guitar, and that's kind of laying out the harmony and the chords that are going on. And then right in the middle of that is this very important instrument that glues those two things together. So I take the rhythm provided by the drums, and then the chord and note choices provided by the piano or the guitar player, and make a bass line, something that glues those two things together. So it's kind of like bass is in this little unique role in the bottom of the band that holds the rhythm together, but ties the harmony and the chords together with a bass line. And I love it. It's my favorite spot in the band to be.
I like that analogy too, of like being the glue that brings the band together in those different ways. So then the transition from that obviously is, okay, so now you're in the band and you have the specific role of like being the glue, as you say. And then when you start doing a solo career, how do you break the bass out of that and kind of make it the lead instrument?
Well, to answer that, for my record specifically, I actually didn't do that. What I did was write the parts for the rest of the band to play on top of the bass. So for most of my records, the lead melodies and the solos or all of that are played by other instruments on top. So it's still like, it doesn't really sound like a bass centric record, in that there's obviously still a bass line and bass playing, but there's a lot of instruments on top that are kind of carrying the lead. So I wrote parts for the horn section to play. I wrote parts for the organ player to play and the piano and the guitar player to play. So it's a little bit more of like I'm the composer of the record, and then I left the very last track on the album to have a lead bass solo. So you do get a little bit of that at the very end of the record. But I always kind of describe it like, as a bass player and being in the bottom of the band, when you're composing and writing everything else, it's very easy because I'm looking at it from the bottom perspective and looking up. And then looking up, I just see everything else that happens on top of me in the rest of the band. And it's kind of an easy point of view to compose and write music from, because everything is built off of that bass line.
Okay, so you would kind of insinuate that the bass is kind of the foundation, right? And then everything else gets put on top of that?
Definitely.
Okay, cool. No, I like this atmosphere because I've really never kind of dove into like the role of the bass, and I know it's a big piece of like the rhythm and kind of the bass line is always the piece that you kind of feel the most, I think, when you're seeing a band live. There's like a very kind of unique way that the bass player kind of connects with the audience. And I'm not talking about like kind of the dancing and the energy aspect, but just the instrument itself, like really does have a piece with the person that's listening to the song. And it's cool to kind of break stuff down a little bit because I've done this before, where you kind of remove one instrument from a song and kind of hear it that way. And then when you start layering stuff together, you're like, oh, now it all makes sense. And that it clicks when you put the bass line into the song, which is very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that before. So that's very cool. I mean, talk to me about the creative process. Cause I would think like, I have a little bit of a songwriting background, right? And my instrument of choice is guitar. So I would strum my guitar and kind of do what I do, and then eventually start humming, and eventually start having words, and eventually it turns into a song. But as a musical artist, especially a bass player, where do you kind of start building the idea of what the song is going to be called, what it's about? Where do you pull the inspiration from for that?
Yeah, so my record is entirely instrumental. So there's no lyrics or anything. So that is kind of a unique way to write music, you know, very different from like a singer-songwriter who'd be writing lyrics and crafting a song. So for me, that sort of the title of the piece can come in a few different directions. Sometimes I have the title of the piece, and that will then lead me to like a concept behind the song. If I want to write something that's going to represent and express that idea or that emotion associated with the title, sometimes it comes that way. Other times the music will come first, and that could look like me having a bass line, or that could look like me having a melody or even a set of chord changes. And then I'll kind of write and compose and see what comes out of that. And then I would try to find a title that would kind of suit and be appropriate to what I compose. And yeah, so it can kind of come in a whole bunch of different directions. I mean, there's parts of my record that I wrote at a sound check, 8 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is a nice little bass line riff. Let me record that. Another bass line I wrote sitting in a hotel room on tour one time, and that was like also 6 years ago. And then, the first track, the first single from my record, Mountain Road, the road that I live on is Mountain Road. And okay. I wrote that the week I moved into this apartment here because I drove up and down Mountain Road 13 times, when I was moving in. And so I was kind of like, I want to write something that just is bouncy and feels like you're going up and down a mountain. And so like that one had a very clear idea coming right from the front. Mm-hmm. Whereas, let's see, the second single, 74 Leonard Street, I had always known that I had wanted to write a song called 74 Leonard Street in tribute to the Knitting Factory venue in Manhattan, kind of where I grew up seeing ska shows. And so that one had another very, very clear idea of what that song was going to be about and the emotions that I wanted to convey and the story that I wanted to tell with that music.
Yeah.
I could go through every song on the record and kind of tell you where it came from. If you wanted to go, that route, I could.
Yeah,
but,
no, completely okay. It's very unique to me to kind of like go through that feel because I'm thinking about just playing my guitar and there's some kind of thing. There's something that triggers an instrumental for me, right? When I'm just playing and there's a moment in life, there's a story that happened, there's something. So I was just curious to see about that layer of that. I mean, you living on Mountain Road and using that as a title and kind of making it a bubbly. Was this the one that has kind of the reggae feel to it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the rocksteady with the organ on top. Yep.
Yep. That's very cool. And I loved that beat. I was listening to it earlier.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's just funny. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about music is you can take this one tiny concept, whether it could be just a quick melody or a quick bass line, and then it can just expand into this whole beautiful song, that's conveying this just emotion to whoever's listening to it. Just to give you a fun little, like the opposite side of that, the fourth track on the record, I had written this like dub reggae tune, and I just didn't find a title that would fit the song that I wrote, because the second you put a title on something, it gives somebody an interpretation of it, right? Like the second I tell you, oh, this song's called Orange Juice, like you're now picturing a glass of orange juice and your experiences with orange juice, right? So the fourth track is called Dub 215, and that is just the file from when I was writing the song. I was like, this is a dub reggae tune, and it was February 15th. And that ended up just staying as the title of the song because I couldn't really find something else that was appropriate to the song. So I just ended up titling it Dub 215.
Still very creative, by the way.
Yeah, and it's still like even Dub 215 kind of gives people some ideas. My friend lives in Philly, and he goes, oh, that's the Philadelphia area code. Did you write this about Philly? And I was like, no, not at all. No, it's just a reggae tune I wrote in February, but it's funny when you start to do that, right?
Yeah, no, I like the layer of this too. So are you kind of playing out with this album too? There's some dates to set up for that too, right? You're going to have Benergy out there live?
Yeah. It'll be like the first time I'm just playing an entire night of my own music and as the band leader. So I'm very excited about it. I've got 4 dates set up for the first weekend in June. We're going to play in Newark, New Jersey, my hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York. And then we're going to go up to Boston, and we're going to play on Saturday in Boston. And then we're playing in Westfield, Massachusetts, which is kind of near Springfield, for a Sunday ska matinee show. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, I want people to check out the music, so we're going to give them some direction. I found a lot of your stuff on YouTube. It's a very cool spot to go listen to the tracks under Sleepwalk Sounds, which is what the label that you're kind of working with now, which is very cool. And then obviously they can go over to your website, which is Ben Basile, BenBasile.com. I found a lot of your music obviously on your website, and I think you have some social accounts and stuff too. And then obviously you're like in everywhere the music is streamed as well. I want to just kind of encourage people to go check out Benergy. It's got a really cool feel. We're in the spring right now. People are starting to get in their cars. They want to just go on long drives. You guys are starting to go to the beach. Like just take this album with you. Like just download it and put it in your car and do your thing. Cause this reggae beats that are kind of in here, they feel very much so like you said, Mountain Road, right? But like they feel very much so like just a driving beat that you just need. There's no words to mess with your head. You just kind of chill.
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine called it a summer spinner.
I like
that. And I was like, and I said to him, I was like, I'm gonna steal that. Okay. I hope that's all right. Like,
absolutely.
I'm like once the record comes out, I'm gonna kind of be like, your summer spinner is here, and that's exactly why I wanted to release it like this time of year. The first single came out February 28th, which is very different than May 2nd, and the full record comes out on May 2nd, and it's kind of just like launching into spring. It's a one of the early times I was talking about the record, I said it's very good for driving, and if you're in your kitchen cooking a meal, And those are like two things that I do a lot of. So like the record kind of fits that vibe, you know?
Well, we're all doing that vibe, man. The spring has sprung in New York finally for you and me.
It's beautiful right now.
And so like the windows are open, the doors are starting to open. I've officially turned the heat off, you know, like we're starting to clean the house and move around a little bit. And this is just really good energy music to help you with all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad that you and I were able to connect, Ben. You're definitely an excellent musician. I'm really glad that we were able to connect. Is there anything going on with Big D and the kids table in the near future too?
Oh man, my birthday is Friday night, this Friday in 2 days. And I have been trying for 10 years to get Big D and the kids table to play near my hometown. And we, through the graces of the ska gods, we are playing in Kingston, New York, which is right where I live. I live in Rosendale, right next to Kingston. We're playing in Kingston, New York on my birthday. And my favorite ska band is the Planet Smashers, and they are opening up the show on my birthday in my hometown. So yeah, Big D's going out to play a couple shows this weekend, starting in my hometown. And then Big D's going to Canada in May for 5 shows as well. And then shortly after that, I have the weekend of my Benergy shows in the first weekend of June. So it's going to be a nice busy spring.
Yeah, very cool. Well, congrats on all the success, man. It's really great to be able to connect and talk a little bit about music with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.